Hello there, everybody. My name is Okemi Hancho, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the ethics of facial recognition technology. We're going to be diving into the ethical issues that this technology raises and how we can address them using certain ethical theories. What ethical issues does facial recognition give rise to? So, facial recognition has been an emerging technology in our society for a while now, and it's being used in places like the criminal justice system and the healthcare system to better improve things there. But there are three common criticisms that this technology faces. The sharing of information without consent is one of them. Next is biases. The next is the lack of privacy. Let's dive deeper into these issues. The problem with the sharing of information without consent, what is it? So let's take a look at an ethical theory called deontology. And that states deontology is all about how we would judge actions as morally wrong or morally right, as right or wrong. And there are a lot of principles that can be used in deontology for this, one of which is the principle of maxim, where it states that everyone should not do things that they wouldn't will the rest of the world to do. The principle of maxim states that you should do things only if you would will the rest of the world to act in the same way. So looking at this situation, sharing information without consent, in order to do something without consent, we have to do something without the consideration of others. When you do something without the consent of others, you're doing something regardless of how other people feel, regardless, and specifically without the thought or consideration of other people in mind, of their lives, and how your actions are impacting them. If everybody did things without the consent of others, it would cause a much more narcissistic and harsh reality, enabling us to hurt other people, do things that hurt other people, but then simply overlook it. We might not care and be attuned enough to other people's reality to prevent suffering from being caused and damage being done to the world and to ourselves, because we also create the world that we live in. How have some countries responded to this? In the United States, it is illegal for commercial law firms to send out people's biometric data without consent, and in Europe, it is enlisting the General Data Protection Regulation. So these actions that the United States and Europe are taking to protect the consent of other people shows how highly they value the consent, shows that they certainly view the lack of consent when sending out people's information via facial recognition technology is a problem, and they are doing what they can to protect this right that people have, the right for consent. So the solution to this problem, how would the solution to sending out information without the consent of others be? First, it would start with applying the principle of maxim from deontology to see that it would be beneficial for everyone to do things with the consideration of others in mind, which would create for a more conducive world for everyone, physically, mentally, emotionally. If we take other people into account, they will be more motivated and more likely to do that for us, for everybody. If we take other people into account, we create a world that is safer for everyone to live in. Another aspect of deontology is the goodwill. And the goodwill states that the only thing that is good in an action or quality is the will to do good. So if we adopt some form of the goodwill in our lives regularly, we will create good things, we will create good things, do good things towards others, creating a society that is healthier for us to live in. Because when you take actions from the goodwill, you end up doing good things for the world. Now, what are some ideas we can have? So some ideas are we set up systems to inform people of how their information will be used to see if they're okay with it being used in the way that companies are saying it will be used. So the company sets up systems, they say, hey, this is how we're going to be using your information, this is who we're going to be sending it to, this is who might get in contact with it, and let them have an option to agree or disagree with that. Let the people have an option to agree or disagree with that. Also, giving people the option to decide how much information can be used. How much are they willing to send? This will help make people feel more comfortable about it and establish more trust between the companies of facial recognition. Now we move on to biases. So if you take a look at this picture right here, you'll see this is a study done by the Gender Shades Project. We have 5 different companies that were using facial recognition to test the accuracy of their software on the African American race and of the Caucasian race. So they tested on lighter males, lighter females, darker males, and darker females. Now, their tests have shown that facial recognition is the least accurate are darker females. How is this a problem? So facial recognition has been criticized for its racial bias, especially in the criminal justice system, the system where they have used facial recognition to create mugshots and to essentially identify suspects of certain crimes, right? If we apply an ethical theory called utilitarianism, which states that actions are morally right if they produce the greatest good for the world, right? We can see that having these biases around is not conducive to the greater good. If we're having facial recognition biases and inaccuracies in the criminal justice system working, it can lead to the misidentification of criminals, having a greater chance of justice being brought to innocent people, meaning innocent people being prosecuted, criminals getting off the hook, time being wasted, and the criminals getting away with their actions more because they're not being correctly identified. How have countries responded to this? Well, the US in particular has taken many actions. Advocacy groups have been educating on racial literacy. There has been a pledge there's been a pledge that has been created called the Safe Face Pledge, which calls companies to address biases in their technologies. Congressional hearings have been held for anti-black discrimination in facial recognition technologies in the US. So, as you can see, these are many actions that have been taken to raise awareness of biases in facial recognition technology and to make the companies aware, the companies who are using facial recognition technologies aware of the biases so that they can correct them and reprogram them and make them more neutral. Bringing us to our next point, the solution is to simply for companies to work on creating the most neutral facial recognition systems. This will contribute to more usefulness in the criminal justice system. More usefulness because the right suspects will be getting identified and wrong people won't be getting prosecuted. Time will not be getting wasted, and efforts to create a more safe, habitable society to keep it safe from dangerous people will be happening. Now let's move on to privacy. So, there's been some cases of information being collected from facial recognition technologies that are exposed to sources that it shouldn't be. So what happened basically is facial recognition technology gathered data from people, brought it back to their companies. Their companies ended up being vulnerable to attack from cyber threats, cyber criminals, hackers, people looking to steal information, fraudulent people. Now, we could apply the utilitarianism here and see which utilitarianism, let's go back and see what that is again. It states that actions are morally right if they produce the greatest good for the world. We can see that it would not be right, beneficial to anybody, for our information to be kept in unsecure places where it's vulnerable to being stolen, where the companies are vulnerable to being attacked. So, what's the solution? Keeping our information as tight and secure as possible is the solution. So if we are to entrust our information with these companies, they should be working on their security systems regularly, getting the right people to update them and keep them secure, and improve them constantly so that they can defend against any attack. Companies should also let people know the level of security of their technology. That would be a great idea. Let them know up front how secure their technology is, and if people, let people know if they want to invest in it or not. That way they could invest in a place where they feel more safe, secure. That is going to conquer any problems of safety with our information and distrust as well between the companies and the people. And I think we've reached the end of our video. If you guys want to look more into these issues, I have some articles for you. This one from nature.com talks about the issues of information being sent out without consent to other places. It also talks about biases and facial recognition technology being biased towards vulnerable populations. This video right here at harvard.edu in particular goes more in depth with the biases and speaks on the racial discrimination present in facial recognition technology. Sorry. NCBI.NLM focuses on how the healthcare field has responded to it and what they're doing to prevent these issues. And this article at natlareview.com focuses on the privacy issue of it. It discusses the issues that where privacy has arisen and focuses on how privacy can be an issue. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, gained something out of it. Have a great rest of your week.